This video is brought to you by HalloCasa. Our tool transforms independent local real estate agents to global real estate agents. Create your own profile for free and get contacted by international investors. Sign up with the link in the description. Hello and welcome everyone to our 201st session of HalloCasa. My name is Michael and today I'm talking to Mir Ali from the Greater Toronto area. Mir Ali is the founder and broker of record at Creiland Consultants Realty, a boutique advisory firm based in the Greater Toronto area with over 20 years of experience in the field. Mir Ali brings a wealth of knowledge across investment sales, asset management, site selection, and leasing strategies. His firm is not only known for delivering value-driven results, but also for integrating blockchain and cryptocurrency into real estate transactions, positioning itself at this intersection of traditional practice and tech innovation. In addition to leading Creiland, Mir serves as asset manager at Rooksa Investments, where he oversees a portfolio of income-generating properties. Mir, thank you so much for your time. It's always great to talk with people from the Toronto area. You have a population in the entire area around 10 million. It's more than a couple of countries in Europe. So it's always very, very nice to realize the huge GDP which your area actually generates. One more time, welcome to the show. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you for having me. Hello, audience of HalloCasa. Mir Ali from Creiland Consultants. I am the CEO of Creiland Consultants. And before that, I was with Cushman Wakefield for a good 14, 15 years in the commercial real estate industry. And prior to that, I was a client of Cushman Wakefield, helping with the family asset investments through Rooksa Investments. So thank you for having me.
First question, what motivated you to jump into real estate?
Jump into real estate. Before I got into real estate, I was actually into construction. I was a licensed electrician. Right out of high school, I went into the trades and I did a lot of custom build as residential electrical wiring. And the houses that I would see were beautiful, large ravine in a very premium area of the Toronto market known as the Battle Path. That's where Drake lives. So I used to do a lot of electrical wiring there. I got really inspired and motivated by the people that own those properties and what they did, and I would become friends with them because during consultation of the wiring, I'd get to know what they want, where they want, how many pot lights, where they want switches, and yada yada with the homeowners. And then be like, hey, what do you do? It's okay, I do real estate. I'm into development. I'm into construction. I'm into investment. I'm into importing, exporting. So I saw a lot of people around me. And then I got inspired into real estate. A lot of guys were investing into passive real estate. So I was like, okay, how do I got to get into this sector? So I read a lot of books. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and all these other novels while I was working electrical, trying to figure out how to start getting into a passive source of investment, because in the trades you can make some good money. And then my dad at that time also had a bakery and he had some passive revenue. So him and I combined through Rooksa Investments and started to figure out how to start buying our first commercial real estate property, which we did. And this was like a commercial property on the ground floor, fronting on Main Street. And then on the second floor, you had two residential tenants. And we were not aware of the Residential Tenancies Act compared to the Commercial Tenancies Act, because there's different bylaws and rules and regulations in our market that provide the rights for a landlord and a tenant specific to residential and the rights and a tenant specific to commercial. Like, for example, if that commercial tenant didn't pay rent for 16 days, if it's rent's due on the 1st and on the 16th day they don't pay, you can call a bailiff and lock them out, and that's it, they're out. But if a residential tenant doesn't pay your rent, you cannot just lock them out and push them on the street. You have to go through a court hearing, a tribunal act, submit all sorts of application. And meanwhile, now these guys have been late 2-3 months, and you have to wait another 2-3 months for a court hearing. And God forbid you missed any forms or didn't file the application properly, and now you go to another hearing. So meanwhile, now you're 5-6 months in, the tenant's not paying rent, they damage the property, and so on and forth. So I had to learn all of that. And through that process, I learned that, I want to get into more commercial as opposed to residential, because my main floor tenant was a 5-10 year lease, no problems paying their rent on time. But the second floor residential was a nightmare to deal with. And I was the eldest in the family. I had to deal with that. My dad had English barrier, communicating with the tenants. And it's like, where's the rent? I have to pay my mortgage and the tenant's not opening the door. So that was a learning curve. But then throughout that whole journey, I got more interested into real estate and figuring out what I have to do to solve this issue. And then found out that I could rezone it to permit office use on the second floor instead of residential. And then I had to go through a whole process to get the city's permission, ensure I have sufficient parking, do parking studies. And then eventually I was able to secure a long-term lease with a commercial tenant on the second floor as opposed to a residential tenant. Now I have 5-year leases, and then I had safety of cash flow. And I just like the asset and leveraged that through Cushman Wakefield, and we bought another property, and that's how I got myself into the real estate game.
You left Cushman Wakefield 5 months into COVID. Is it only a correlation or was there also a causation?
I wanted to leave. I got poached by many other brokerages while I was there at Cushman Wakefield to join the other top 5 brokerages. And I kind of I appreciated Cushman Wakefield because I started my career with them, and I didn't want to leave to their competitors. If I were going to leave, I was going to go on my own. But to go on your own when you have an active book of business is a bit challenging because it's never the perfect time. I'll do it this year, I'll do it next year. And then meanwhile, you're working on a trade, and you can't leave. You can't just leave in the middle of a trade, right? Because what's going to happen to your trade? And commercial real estate transactions typically take 4 to 6 months. They're not a quick handout. And so it was never a perfect time. But then when COVID happened, I was like, oh, everywhere just ceased for a good 6 months to a year. And we thought that was a perfect opportunity to make the shift. And I left. My partner stayed on at Cushman and served our existing clients. And shortly after, when the contract expired, the majority of our clients re-signed up through Creiland Consultants, save and except a few that were mandated to go through a public offering process, and they have to go through a tendering process. And the irony is that we still help Cushman Wakefield, which was our former brokerage, with some of those clients because we were the expertise in retail in the areas that those assets were, and they didn't have at that time within that brokerage other representations for that market. So we have a good relationship with them and continue to collaborate with them on opportunities in our markets.
You're actually answering the question differently than I expected. I tried to be a bit more provocative because you jumped into commercial saying residential is so hard, and then you have COVID and it had such a strong impact on commercial. So I thought, okay, there was also just the normal commercial real estate COVID reason to say, okay, I realized that even there is some potential systemic risk in the commercial aspect, but you didn't. So then you jumped into, or you also started maybe parallelly to dedicate your time towards the Central Canada chapter, like the CCIM Institute. Educate us about this one.
Yeah, I love that organization. When I started with Cushman & Wakefield, I was thinking, I'm here now on the brokerage side. How can I differentiate myself, and how can I advance my skill sets to be able to add value to my clients and be able to be confident when pitching to in front of investors, be able to be confident to underwrite and evaluate an investment property. And that there's one thing that you can learn from the streets, from seeing other senior brokers, and there's other thing to get the theoretical components and ensure you've uncovered every stone and you've gone through a series of examination and testing and a number of hours of classroom teachings with a professor, either in person or in class, through various different classes. So we did that, and then I became the CCIM, and I got my PIN in 2019, I believe. It took me about 2.5 years to pursue my PIN. I was doing it because you have to study, and it takes several months while you're working concurrently, or you can do it in class. But I became a candidate, and then soon thereafter I was a designee, and then I joined the local chapter board as part of the education committee. And then while at that time I was at Cushman & Wakefield, and I was still promoting the CCIM designation to a lot of other agents that are into residential and wanted to do more and more commercial. So the other agents that want to go into commercial, you would guide them the ropes as to how to transition their career from residential focus to now more commercial focus, and what are the tools that they need to be able to get the CCIM pen. And I was a part of the board of directors on the education committee. And then thereafter, I became the president for the Central Canada chapter. But ironically, that happened right the same year we were starting Creiland Consultants. That happened the same year when we were in the middle of COVID and we couldn't really do many events or get-togethers. So the year of my presidencies, we were locked indoors with masks, and even when we had board of directors meeting, it was either through Zoom or in person and spacing apart 3 meters. So we couldn't really add a lot of values and networking events to our team and our members. But I'm grateful for the connections and the relationships that I've built through that association, because you meet a lot of people, and people have a lot of relationships with other people that they bring us opportunities to work on and or collaborate on together.
Now tell us about your current brokerage, your own one, Creiland Consultants.
Creiland Consultants. Yeah, Creiland Consultants stands for Commercial Real Estate Investment and Land Development. That's what Creiland stands for. Like the reason why we left Cushman Wakefield or the other brokerages, and the reason why we chose not to go with any other brokers, because we want to have the flexibility to be able to adapt our brokerage to any path that we want to. And being under any other banner, even having our own team such as the Remax or Roll the Page, which is what a lot of people do, is great and all, but you still have restrictions, you still have the corporate rules, you still have the corporate branding. Is some sort of a barrier that you have to work within, right? But starting your own brokerage, you have the flexibility to do whatever you want. And what's trending as of late is obviously buying real estate, tokenized real estate, using Bitcoin and using your digital currencies and implementing that within a brokerage model and a financing model. That's what we have been focusing the past year and a half to be able to get off the ground. So we're making great progress to that extent, so that we could offer commercial real estate to accredited investors in a tokenized manner. So for example, the average commercial real estate would cost you for a nice portfolio would be at least $2-3 million to say I've got a nice commercial asset, right? But the average investor is hard to be able to buy that on their own. You need to be able to have at least, if it's an income producing asset, ideally 30 to 40% down. And then the rest you can potentially get financing from the bank, so long as you have good quality tenants there with good covenant and long-term leases, and then you can get financing from the bank. But even that 30 to 40% on $3 million is a lot of money. The average Joe does not have $1 million cash ready to be able to put towards a commercial real estate investment. But they may have $200,000 now. They may have $150,000 ready, right? So now what we can do is we take that pie of that asset that owns the real estate, and we would split it into, for example, say 10 tokens. And then each token will represent 10% ownership, right? So you buy one for $100,000. You buy two for $200,000, right? You own 20%, I own 10%, and so on and forth. And then the income that's being generated would also get distributed back to the investors based on their proportionate share of their income. So we're trying to create liquidity for commercial real estate investment for accredited investors that have some capital, they want to get into commercial, but they don't have the expertise and they don't have that large of amount of capital to buy something on their own. So we're generating that through tokenized real estate. And then we're also working towards offering to a lot of our investors, because we have a relationship with a lot of investors that own commercial real estate holdings, portfolios of them, and they're always looking for other assets to put their capital towards. So what we're trying to do is to see if you can offer our investors through another avenue, which is blockchain mortgages or Bitcoin mortgages. So for example, if I have $100,000 in Bitcoin, I would provide that with a custodian, which is a legal entity that's governed in Ontario, a regulated custodian that would hold that Bitcoin in trust. And then our investors would give them a loan, right? A loan equivalent to 50% of the amount that they put in collateral. So if you put $100,000 in Bitcoin, our investors would give you a loan for $50,000 for, say, 10% interest, right? This way, the borrower doesn't sell their Bitcoin. They're just keeping it with our custodian, because once you have Bitcoin, the mindset is you want to keep it because it's going to appreciate like gold and diamond over time because there's limited supply of it available. So this way, so long as the borrower is making the interest payment to the investor, and it could be for a period of 3 months, 4 months, or 12 months, however long of a loan period they want, and the collateral is always there, that's equivalent to 2-to-1 because Bitcoin is volatile. And then if the level of the collateral loan to value fluctuates, they have to top up more Bitcoin, because if it gets close to a 1-to-1 ratio, then we could automatically sell the Bitcoin to recover our investors' capital, and the borrower would have gotten at least multiple heads up notice before it came to a 1-to-1, because they initially started at 2-to-1. So we're starting that as well to try to get off the ground. And in addition to that, we're focusing with a lot of our clients that we've been working with over the past 16 to 18 years, helping them buy, sell, lease, and our other tenants and our medical tenants that are looking for site selections to expand their business. So we do a lot of commercial leasing as well, in addition to helping our clients buy and sell.
How do you track the ratio? Is it on a daily basis? Do you use like an API, or do you?
Yeah, so we have through our custodian, for example, if they put in our custody agreement with the borrower, will stipulate that you have to maintain 2-to-1 ratio. And as that ratio drops, you'll get a notification every 10%, 20%, 30%. So the borrower gets multiple heads up warning, hey, top up. And it could go contrary the other way around, right? If Bitcoin value goes up, say from 100,000 that you put it to $200,000, now you can access more capital out as well, because you're putting more than 2-to-1.
I understand. So the custodian basically knows exactly, hey, listen, you're right now on 1 Bitcoin. That's what you own. We know exactly the worth, and we see the fluctuation. We see like we hold this one against the property value, et cetera, et cetera. So they basically track it, knowing how much Bitcoin he has put down basically as collateral. Correct.
Not so much the property value, the Bitcoin value itself, because, for example, what we're talking about right now is the financing and mortgages of Bitcoin, right? Initially, we talked about buying of fractional and tokenized assets. That's on the acquisition side, buying a real estate, right? This is strictly merely lending towards Bitcoin holders through our investors, right? So if you have Bitcoin assets and you don't want to sell, but you want to create some liquidity, some capital to get money and be able to put it towards other investments, the borrowers can now do that through our regulated custodian. The main concern problem all along was like, who's going to hold the capital? Who's going to hold the Bitcoin? And do I trust that guy? Unfortunately, we have a regulated body that the same regulations that the banks go through, this custodian has to comply with. So it's like whether you put your money in a bank or you put it with this custodian, it's the same level of security and regulations that they have to go abide by.
Where do you see the entire Bitcoin and crypto market going regarding, do you think this is the solution working with a custodian? Do you think there's going to be like peer crypto payments? What do you see also like from both sides, the custodian side and also the investor side? What is the need there at the moment?
Everyone wants to diversify, right? You can't put all your eggs in one basket. With respect to the flexibility or your investments, like you either have your investments in the stock market, or you have it in gold, or you have it in diamonds, or you have it into cash, or you have it into an alternative option, which is now digital currency, Bitcoin. And it has been picking up a lot of traction, and it's a form of currency that is becoming more and more mainstream despite all the negative headline that it's been getting, right? Because now we have Wealthsimple accepting more and more banks are coming on board, more credit unions are coming on board to accepting Bitcoin and allowing you to buy Bitcoin and transfer Bitcoin. So I think it's starting to become more and more streamlined. A lot of restaurants nowadays, like a lot of retailers, have options so you can tap and pay with your Bitcoin.
Makes sense.
Right? Scan, and this is the price, and you scan their wallet and you can directly send payments through your Bitcoin. So what I'm saying is it's becoming more and more acceptable to society, but it's the younger generation are having an easier time grasping onto it than the baby boomers, right?
Now, regarding your own company, where do you have created an entire brokerage, and I think this cannot be under or overemphasized because there's a lot of courage you need to take in order to take that step. You have to create your processes, build your team, take the best practices which you have learned from other competitors, from Cushman, obviously. Where do you think the entire brokerage industry is going? Do you think you have to adapt? Do you think, listen, what an ignorant question, like nothing will change. It's always going to be like that, and it's fine. Maybe playing devil's advocate there, saying, yeah, I think actually like I'm always challenging my beliefs, my ingrained beliefs, and I'm trying to understand like how can we maybe prepare ourselves to weather a certain storm which we might not be able to anticipate at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. The brokerage models have obviously evolved, and there's two-pronged approach, and you have to go through trial and error to see what is your brokerage objective. Where do you want to go with it? So one approach that the brokerage model has is I have a brokerage, and my model would be to go and hire as many agents as I can under my brokerage umbrella, and they're my realtors now. And then I make that 10, 15, 20% cut that I would get from each one of their deals. And that's one model, which is okay, but then now it takes you away from your area of expertise to go conduct business and do your own business, because then you're so much worried about running a brokerage and dealing with Joe's problem, John's problem, his problem, and the broker of record is liable for all of their realtors. And we are governed through Real Estate Ontario RECO, and that there's many different OREA and there's CREA, and there's so many different governing bodies, and just like in our markets or other markets. So we didn't want to focus so much on growing the brokerage model because it takes away from our attention to servicing our clients. Our focus was like, okay, let's create a brokerage and focus and have an arm that specializes in commercial real estate, and ensure that the people that we're going to hire are certified commercial investment members, CCIMs, with that pen that I mentioned, that have gone through the studying, so that when they're sitting in front of their clients, the brand is going to give really good value to its clients. And so that's a different model because it becomes more boutique rather than just bring anybody through the door. Sure, here's your business card, here's your sign, you can carry the brand. So we try to shy away from that and just hire people that are going to be commercial certified and able to help our commercial clients. But what we did also contrary to that is we created a sister division called Creiland Homes, because it's, like I said, as our own brand, our own brokerage, we can do whatever we want. But we kept it completely separately. So we have Creiland Consultants just doing strictly commercial, and then Creiland Homes that allows the ability to bring in newer agents that are willing to take their CCIM, that have been doing commercial and residential, but they don't want to walk away from their residential revenue because that's revenue. They have built relationship with people for over decades or years, and when someone calls you, I want to sell my house $1 million, and in our markets it's 2 to 5%. That's anywhere between $30,000 to $50,000 commission that you don't want to walk away from as a realtor. So we created Creiland Homes so that we give the option, so that if we have agents that are coming in that are willing to pursue their CCIM designation and be a certified commercial agent under Creiland Consultants, but yet don't want to let go of their residential opportunities, that's fine. We can still push it through our brokerages, but however, it's going through the residential brand, not our commercial brand. So they'll have different audiences, different social channels, different websites, so that, because our expertise are commercial, and we don't want to give the mix promoting a residential property through our commercial service offering. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know your time is very limited, and I appreciate the information you are sharing with us. I learned a lot. You gave us a very nice overview on, first and foremost, your motivation regarding why commercial and over residential. It makes total sense, to be honest. I think many people don't see it. So you have the headaches, and also even like the legal foundation is not really helping, let's say, the landlords. It's tough.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
not disregarding the difficult situations the tenant sometimes goes through. But obviously, there's a lot of room for friction, for legal battles and what have you. So you elegantly actually overcame this risk and say, listen, I go directly commercial. What are the elements which I have to take care of in order to be registered for that and certified for that? And then we can also maybe even get a higher ROI, longer tenants, and tenants who are less inclined to also complain, because sometimes even the payer is not even the tenant. So it's actually a beautiful revenue model. The other thing which I really appreciate is your motivation on, like, also first and foremost giving credits to your former employer. I think many people don't do that. Like, you learned a lot, you're giving them a lot of credibility, and you're also very grateful for the journey there. But then also knowing, okay, I feel like internally there's a different calling. I feel like I need to create my own touch in the world. We talked it before the recording. And then also having the leap of faith and jumping into it. Not only like remaining or having this one remained as a desire, a dream. In the end, you just stay because it's comfortable. You have a family. It's like always those, let's say, you all have to wait off, you say, but still having the guts to make that move definitely speaks for your courage. And finally, you gave us a lot of technical insights regarding blockchain, crypto, and I appreciate also the detailed elements, the description of how it works with the custodian, so that also the listeners understand, okay, it's actually very easy to digest, to wrap your head around and say, okay, that's cool, I get it. Just need to make sure that the correlation is according to what is stated based on the fluctuation of the asset value of the blockchain or the Bitcoin value. And lastly, also gave us a very good point of view regarding what you think will happen and also how you have to adjust. Is there anything else you'd like to mention to the audience which we haven't touched upon?
That's all for now. I really thank you for your time and the audience's time for listening to what Creiland has to offer. And anytime you need any advice for assets, commercial assets in our market in Toronto, Creiland and the team is more than happy to help any of your audience. And thank you once again, Michael. I appreciate you reaching out. It was a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you, Mir. And now I also know how to pronounce Creiland properly. Since I'm German, I have a tendency to do
Are you German? My wife is actually from Germany,
so she might have it.
I can speak a little bit here and
That's
there.
good. That's good. Yeah. Okay.
Say good. Okay, buddy. Thank you so much again. I appreciate the call.
Thank you so much, man. Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye.
Likewise.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
This video is brought to you by HalloCasa. Our tool transforms independent local real estate agents to global real estate agents. Create your own profile for free and get contacted by international investors. Sign up with the link in the description.